From 90-ton supercarnivores to grass-eating dwarfs to land-walking goofballs, sharks have done it all. These animals were revered across human history as sleek killing machines, perfectly adapted for life as apex predators of the vast ocean. Just as with crocodiles, however, the idea that sharks are living fossils that haven't changed since the time of the nonavian dinosaurs is a false one. Sharks, and the larger group of elasmobranchs that they belong to, are incredibly diverse and have expanded to occupy a huge variety of different ecological positions over the last 300 million years. Let's talk about the elasmobranchs on a broad scale, discussing some of their most iconic groups as well as the physiological traits that contribute to their legendary success. While the title of the video says sharks, I couldn't justify excluding rays, skates, and their other close relatives, so this video will be an overview of elasmobranchs in general, an evolutionary highlight reel, if you will. Elasmobranchs are cartilaginous fish with 5 to 7 gill slits, placoid or tooth-like scales, an upper jaw that isn't fused to the cranium, claspers present in males, stiffened dorsal fins, and an oil-rich liver for buoyancy instead of a swim bladder. Sharks specifically don't have ribs, and their pectoral fins, or the fins on the front part of their torso, don't overlap with their head as in rays or skates. We'll be including some extinct non-shark elasmobranchs that convergently evolve the shark-like characteristics. Our cladogram, for the purposes of today's video, starts with gnathostomatid fishes, or those with jaws. Jawed fish split into osteichthyes, or bony fish, and cartilaginous fish, or chondrichthyes. Chondrichthyes are further divided into elasmobranchs and holocephali, chimeras. Holocephalians aren't the focus of this video, but there are a couple of incredibly awesome taxa that I cannot in good conscience not talk about. Helicoprion will come as no surprise to those holocephalian fans in the audience. Despite not being a true shark, it is quite a sharky fellow, and you may quote me on that. This Permian giant was originally known only from tooth whorls, bizarre circular structures that led to a variety of guesses and reconstructions of the near-alien fish. Fortunately, better specimens uncovered later showed soft tissue preservation of how the whorl was arranged within the skull, indicating that Helicoprion likely used the teeth to crush and impale soft prey within its mouth, moving it further back for swallowing. The largest specimens likely belong to individuals greater than 7 meters in body length, making it one of, if not the largest, predator of the Paleozoic. Similar sizes were reached by its Carboniferous relative Adestus, which had even more wicked jaw whorls in both the top and bottom of its mouth. The Carboniferous often gets highlighted as spooky invertebrate land, but this holocephalian was easily its most powerful predator. Another subgroup within Holocephalia, the Carcharhiniformes, is home to one of the strangest shark relatives of all, Harpagophytutor, the chimera eel. Only a few inches long, this Carboniferous weirdo had some of the most extreme sexual dimorphism in the fossil record. The males not only had spined pelvic claspers, but antler-like structures on their head that could rotate in a ball-and-socket joint like antennae. Now that the holocephalian tax has been paid, let's talk about the non-shark elasmobranchs to gain a better understanding of the evolutionary context of our favorite nightmare fish, highlighting a few taxa from each group to make them easier to remember. Somoroforms have at least one well-known member, the ironing board shark Stethacanthus. At 1.5 to 3 meters, depending on the species, this somoroform had spines on its dorsal and pelvic fins, possibly for display. Males of both species had what's called a spine brush complex, what we've nicknamed the ironing board or anvil. It's a dorsal spine that's gone a little too far, covered with roughly textured dentine like extra teeth on its back. Stethacanthus also had similar rugose patterns on its forehead with an uncertain purpose. Perhaps it was a skilled painter, or was frequently employed as a living belt sander. Tenacanthiformes were a group of Devonian Permian elasmobranchs, characterized by spiny fins, multiple large dorsal fins, and cladodont teeth. That means a typical tooth had one major slender spike or blade with the base supported by multiple smaller blades. The structure acts like a trap for prey during the bite and stops them from escaping. Excuse my language, but Dracopristis was freaking sick. The name means dragon shark, so I'm already interested. This particular Tenacanthiform had elaborate spines on both of its dorsal fins, acting simultaneously as display structures and predator defense. And at 2 meters long, it was large enough to eat a wide variety of invertebrates and small vertebrates. Its cladodont teeth were perfect for stabbing and then crushing prey. Godrichthyes was a less spiny relative, but it was Scottish, so extra points there. Chibobvenator had thorny dorsal spines and was huge, about 5 to 6 meters long, solidly great white shark territory. But even that falls short in comparison to the titanic Cyvodus, which was not only more robust, but even longer at up to 7 meters. That's big enough to bite a human in half, in case you were wondering, and I'm sure that you were. Xenacanthiformes, like Xenacanthus itself, were typically freshwater and shallow marine dwellers that lived in the Carboniferous to the Triassic, although most died in the Permian extinction. They had long bodies with highly elongated dorsal fins and also had extremely protruding spines like Tenacanthiformes, but on the head. They may have served a dual function of predator defense and social communication. Some studies suggest that Xenacanthiformes are actually just part of Tenacanthiformes. Vividen is another possibly paraphyletic order. They were elongate, dorsally spined elasmobranchs with tricuspid teeth. Thrinacotis is the weirdest member. It's basically an eel, but one that's quite nearly a shark, and its teeth look like somebody shoved caltrops into its mouth. Euselachiae is the next group. This clade includes the hybodontiformes, which we'll talk about in a second, as well as the neoselachiae, which include the true sharks, Selachiae, in addition to Batoidia, the rays, skates, and sawfish. Hybodontiformes retain the dorsal spines seen in the clades we just covered and have a wide variety within their tooth shapes. Some had long, sharp teeth like you'd expect from a shark-like animal, but others were durophagous, specializing in hard-shelled animals, and so had their jaws filled with smooth pebble-like teeth for crushing. Hybodonts were successful in a variety of environments, found in river and ocean deposits alike, and they lasted a long time, all the way from the Devonian to the Cretaceous. Hybotis is the cephalopod-eating namesake for the group and one of the best preserved members. We even know that the males, identified by the presence of pelvic claspers, had little Darth Maul horns. How cool is that? Neoselachiae brings us two new clades, Selachiae and Batoidia, which include true sharks and rays, skates, and sawfish respectively. The shark body plan may have first appeared in the Devonian, Cladoselachi, with true sharks originating either in the Jurassic or the Permian. We are quite confident about the Jurassic having true sharks, or selachids, almost immediately after the Triassic extinction. The Permian evidence isn't as strong and is mainly based on molecular clock predictions, but it's worth mentioning. Let's cover Batoidia first, and remember this is a general overview. There are an incredible amount of living species within both these groups, so I'm only talking about the basics in order to keep the video a reasonable length. I try to release these things every week after all. Members of the Batoidia, also commonly referred to as batomorphs, have hundreds of species. They can generally be recognized by the ventral or underside placement of their mouths in tandem with a flattened body shape. Rays are the most extreme examples of this morphology, with their frisbee silhouette and pectoral wings. The eyes are on the top of their heads rather than on the sides like sharks. Batomorphs evolved the same disc-like body shape in three different lineages. The Torpediniformes, which include the electric rays, the Ragiformes, or the extra-flat skates that typically give life birth, and the Myliobatiformes, which lay claim to proper stingrays. The fourth clade in Batoidia is the Rhinopristiformes, which includes my favorite elasmobranch of all time, Rhina encyclostoma, the bowmouth guitarfish. I saw one of these in person at the Disney World Aquarium and am forever changed. This thickly built ray is a spike-covered, shark-shaped, shell-crushing beast the size of a grown man and is easily one of the coolest animals to ever exist. Selachiae, or true sharks, contain two chief groups. We will begin with the Squalomorphs, sharks that A. don't have a nictitating membrane covering their eyes, B. don't have an anal fin, and C. don't have a bony shelf beneath their eyes. Squalomorphi contain four orders, the first of which is the Squaliformes. Nice little connection there. The Squaliformes contain some of the most bizarre shark species known to science, like Trigonognathus cabei, or the viper dogfish. The viper dogfish is only half a meter long, a diminutive little creature, but makes up for its small size with its frightful appearance. It projects its ghoulish jaws out of its mouth to impale prey, eating soft fish as well as armored crustaceans like crabs. Viper dogfish live in fairly deep waters, as far down as 360 meters, and give life birth. Greenland sharks are perhaps the most famous squaliform among the general public, known for their toxic flesh and incredibly long lifespans. One caught individual was estimated to be between 272 and 512 years old, meaning that this female shark could have been alive during the American Revolutionary War, on the young end. They grow incredibly slowly, but with such long lives they reach up to 6 meters long and can weigh a full metric ton. Fun fact, we have the entire genome of Greenland sharks sequenced. Turns out they have incredible DNA repair mechanisms, explaining their long lives, and that might be useful for human longevity treatments in the future. Cookie cutter sharks are infamous little creatures. The half-meter bioluminescent shark lives in oceans all over the world and gets its name from how it uses its round jaws to tear out chunks of larger animals as if cutting cookies out of raw dough. They've even caused problems for navies by damaging important technology. It's kind of cute, in a horrifying claymation kind of way. The next order within the Squalomorphs are the Hexanchiformes, a group that includes the frilled and cow sharks. Their dorsal fin is near the back of the trunk over the pelvis. This is the blunt-nosed six-gill shark, a 5.5 meter predator with teeth shaped like wood saws. They tend to spend most of their time near the seafloor and swim up to hunt. Frilled sharks are Hexanchiformes as well, and I love them. Little freaks. I say little, but they're 2 meters long and have hundreds of wicked sharp teeth. Frilled sharks swim like eels in what's called an anguilliform swimming style, wiggling back and forth. It's not terribly efficient, but frilled sharks have an especially lightweight liver that helps them reduce the effort required to move in the water. Ongoing research indicates that molecular evidence may imply that hexanchiformes actually aren't true sharks, but are a sister group to the Selachii. Angel sharks are the sole living members of the Squalomorphs, which is a very entertaining word to say out loud. Squalomorphs. Angel sharks convergently resemble rays thanks to their huge pecs, which flatten out their body shape and let them hide inside the sea floor, chomping up small animals they find there through high-speed ambushes. Saw sharks belong to the Pristiaphoriformes. They're aptly named. Their long rostrum is lined with wicked blade-like teeth resembling a chainsaw. They use it much how you'd expect, to do slashing damage in D&D terminology, hacking their prey or wounding them enough that they can't escape. They're small but successful, with a fossil record extending all the way back to the Cretaceous period. That wraps up the Squalomorphs. On to the galeomorphs, which include most of the sharks you've likely heard of growing up. The order Heterodontiformes is mostly extinct, with the only living genus being Heterodontus itself, which is also known as the bullhead shark. These little guys are shallow water, small-bodied, suction-feeding predators focusing on inverts like cephalopods and crustaceans. They use suction to trap them and then crush them using their molar-like rear teeth. Orichalctolobiformes have the weird sharks. The wobbegong, or shaggy beard shark, is the poster child for this group. They have bright patterns, reach 2 to 3 meters long, and hunt small animals on the seafloor. Plus, look at their majestic facial hair. It serves as a disguise, making it resemble plant life or coral, and allows them to better navigate their surroundings like whiskers on a cat. Whale sharks also fall into the Orichalctolobiformes. Titanic filter feeders, they mimic whales in not only niche but sheer size. These tropical giants can reach up to 18.8 meters long and migrate to follow the supply of plankton across oceans, using ram feeding to take in enormous amounts of microorganisms at a time. They're so different from the traditional view of a stereotypical shark that it almost seems like the result of a speculative evolution project. Giant filter-feeding shark? That'll never happen. Epaulette sharks prefer extremely shallow water and can survive low-oxygen environments for up to 2 hours at a time. They typically don't swim. Instead, since they live in shallow reefs, they push along the substrate with their fins and can even crawl between tide pools on land in order to access new bodies of water and food resources. I wouldn't be surprised if, given a few more million years and the proper selective pressure, the descendants of epaulette sharks ended up looking something like Tiktaalik. Onto Lamniforms, by far the most famous order of sharks. They have 2 dorsal fins, the rear of which is paired with an anal fin. The opening of their jaws goes all the way behind the orbits, giving them a wide grin, and if you're close enough to count the gill slits, you can verify that the critter rushing towards you only has 5. Their eyes also lack nictitating membranes, so they don't blink in the face of danger. Or the face of anything. They physically cannot blink, no matter how badly they might want to. Sand tiger sharks may be the ones you've seen in person the most. They're docile and slow, making them popular choices for shark aquariums. Goblin sharks, on the other hand, I'd be shocked to find in an aquarium. These deep-sea, 3 to 6 meter unicorn-faced hunters have been confirmed to swim more than a mile beneath the surface of the ocean. The long face spike that gives it its name is where it stores its famous ampullae of Lorenzini, bioelectric organs that allow it to sense nearby prey in the deep darkness of the watery void it hunts in. It shoots its jaws forward when capturing prey, which is where the stereotypical depiction of it as an unearthly, hideous creature comes from. Normally, it's much more relaxed. Megamouth sharks are 4 to 5 meter filter feeders that live in the deep sea, with one specimen potentially reaching 9 meters according to a 2024 study. Even for sharks, they seem alien with their bizarre, reflective mouths and almost childlike faces. They're slow, ambling through life at just the speed required to catch and filter plankton. Tychodus just might be the coolest shark ever. It was a duraphage, a shell-crushing animal with peg-like teeth, and had multiple species ranging from 1.5 meters long to 10 meters. It lived during the Cretaceous period, thriving for 30 million years all over the world alongside mosasaurs and other sharks. Basking sharks are lamniforms. You might have started to appreciate how incredibly diverse this one order of sharks is given how many lifestyles we've already seen across only a half-dozen species. At 8 to 10 meters long, basking sharks are one of the largest living animals, and they filter feed in temperate to warm waters to fuel their enormous bulk. This species is millions of years old, dating back to the Miocene epoch of the late Cenozoic. Aquila lamna is sadly not with us today. I admit I would go to war if it meant bringing this delightful eagle shark back to life. Its precise taxonomic placement is uncertain, although it's placed in Lamniforms pending discovery of its teeth. Its pectoral fins were suggested by a 2021 paper to be a convergent trait with manta rays, supporting a planktivorous lifestyle as it glided through the sea like a majestic sea flap. Cratoxyrhina was another Cretaceous success story, but with a very different attitude. It was fast, with biomechanical modeling indicating it was comparable to the fastest modern sharks, and it was huge. At up to 8 meters long and 5 tons, it dwarfed modern great whites, and it may have had a trait called regional endothermy, which allowed its metabolically produced heat to be distributed as needed to its organs to keep them at a high activity rate. If you need an idea of how formidable of a carnivore it was, look at Xiphactinus. This 20-foot bulldog fish has been repeatedly emphasized by the Vividen Corporation as one of the most aggressive and dangerous animals in its environment, swallowing animals half their own size. Carcharhiniformes ate them along with eating mosasaurs. We cannot have a proper video on sharks without the otodontids. Otodus megalodon, the shark of sharks, is an obvious mention. It thrived on a diet of whales, seals, and likely other sharks, ripping them into chunks with its 100,000 Newton bite force. With adults between 15 and 24 meters long, maxing out at 90 plus tons, it was the largest non-ichthyosaur macropredator in Earth's history, and only went extinct 3.5 million years ago. And yes, it is extinct. But while Megalodon is undeniably awesome, it often steals the spotlight from other, just as interesting otodus species. Otodus chubutensis went extinct earlier, about 11 million years ago, but was a formidable whale hunter nonetheless. Individuals range between 6 and 13.5 meters. We have evidence from bitten whale teeth that their jaws were broken during attacks by Otodus chubutensis, which indicates a strategy aiming for the head for an immediate kill. Pretty metal. Otodus angustidens was even earlier, first appearing about 34 million years ago in the early Miocene. At 11 to 12 meters long, it was no small fry, still being double the length of large great whites. Thresher sharks are a big pivot from the whale-killing mega-murder monsters of the Otodus genus, but are no less amazing. These Lamniforms have extremely well-developed caudal fins, which are effective weapons that can knock their prey unconscious, stunning them long enough for the thresher shark to capture them. They're kind of like the shark equivalent of a carnivorous stegosaurus, which is one of the most enlightened sentences to ever grace my mortal mouth. On to the final group of galeomorphs, and our last clade for the video, Carcharhiniformes, which just means shark nose forms. These guys are distinguished from Lamniforms by having a nictitating membrane, so they can, in fact, blink, or do something that looks an awful lot like blinking. Bonnethead sharks are one of the cutest species out there. Dwarf hammerheads that rarely get longer than 1.5 meters, they're famous for their omnivorous diet. Sure, they eat cephalopods and fish and crustaceans like most self-respecting sharks, but they also nibble on seagrass. By nibble, I mean that more than half of what they eat is grass by mass. Put that on a t-shirt. They even have cellulose-targeting enzymes that allow them to actually digest the grass, so it's not just a random behavior. They're actually getting quite a bit of nutrition out of it. Bull sharks are not friendly little grass eaters. They are euryhaline, which means they can survive in either saltwater or freshwater, an ability that puts them into frequent contact with humans. That, combined with their aggression and 2 to 3 meter size, makes them highly dangerous. Their love for low-visibility water adds to that threat level even further. If you're the one to scare them, though, they'll throw up on you as a distraction strategy, hoping you'll eat their leftovers. I wouldn't go for it personally, but some people are really weird. Tiger sharks hunt at night, and hunt, well, just about anything that moves, and plenty of things that don't. Females can regularly reach 4.5 meters long and weigh 900 kilos, with large specimens pushing 5 meters and over a ton. Their teeth point sideways, creating a cutting edge selected for driving through armored prey like turtles and crustaceans. They also work great against unarmored prey like dolphins or seals or birds or squid or other sharks or dugongs or pieces of random trash on the seafloor. You get the picture. Great hammerheads are one of my personal favorite species, so I won't end the video without talking about them. They're just so weird and majestic at the same time, which is hard to pull off. Their cephalofoil, the so-called hammer at the front of their skull, is flat on the front, distinguishing them from other types of hammerheads. They give life birth like many sharks and hunt alone, giving a I'm quirky and live alone vibe. They specialize in hunting stingrays. The horror, I know, hunting other elasmobranchs, isn't that basically cannibalism? Well, not really, because they're distant relatives, but don't worry, hammerheads are actual cannibals too. They've got all their bases covered. We have to talk about the ampullae of Lorenzini, which we briefly touched on earlier, in order to better understand part of why elasmobranchs as a whole have been so successful and widespread for the last, 350 million years. They're sensory organs in the skin that detect minute differences in electrical fields in the nearby area, and are actually believed to be ancestral to all jawed vertebrates. Most tetrapods have lost them since, along with the vast majority of bony fish. Possessing ampullae of Lorenzini gives you the ability to magnetically sense your geographical position, allowing for long migrations without getting lost. They also enhance your ability to detect bioelectricity, a useful trait both for predators hunting for food and for prey animals detecting the presence of threats. That's just one of the tools in an elasmobranch's toolbox, however, as we've seen throughout this basic overview of their evolution. Diversity is key, even for an animal group often touted for their static nature. From slow-moving filter feeders to land-hopping shallow hunters to bone-crushing hyperpredators, sharks have it all. Their success comes from their ability to radiate into different niches, not from staying the same for millions of years. And that's my case for why sharks are nature's favorite animals. Check out the Pseudosuchian episode if you haven't already to find out why crocodiles are another candidate for nature's favorite animal. Make sure to comment here with your suggestions for the next animal group you'd like me to cover. I'm really enjoying this format of covering basic evolutionary overviews tied in with physiology. Do you like it when the cladistics are separated from the physical traits like in the crocodile episode, or do you prefer when they're mixed together as in this one? It's a new series, so it's very flexible in terms of formatting. You might also get a kick out of the video going over the most dangerous animals of each time period. I know I had a blast making it, and I'd love to do more list-style long videos like that one. Thanks for supporting the Vividen Corporation. Hail Tyrant Prime! I'm the Vividen, and I'll see you the next time I nerd out over a group of animals that deserve more love.